Hi, this is John from Sharp Mountain Games, and today we're taking a look at Fate Worlds Rise Up, which is a setting book, a world setting book for Fate. Now, in this book, you get not just one, you get 4 different settings. Originally, Evil Hat was publishing a lot of individual books, individual setting books for Fate, and what they're doing now is they're, I guess, taking some of the best ones, or some of their favorite ones anyway, and combining them into groups of 4, or books with 4 settings in. So I think it's good value for your money, and I'm going to show you inside the book, and then after that, we'll talk about where you can pick it up. Fate Worlds Rise Up is a hardcover book, 208 pages, and there's 4 settings. And the first one to take a look at is Nest. And the best way I can describe Nest is it's Narnia. But it's a little different than Narnia would be, because in Narnia, if I remember correctly, only children go to Narnia. Here, these are adults, and the adults have returned. Now, it's not quite a standard fantasy setting the way, Dungeons and Dragons is. Again, I think it's a little more like Narnia in that. And there's all kind of different areas, Buggledine and Conundrum. And it gives you some information on character creation, how you can create a character that will work in this world. And this uses Fate Core rather than Fate Accelerated. So there's, I believe, 19 skills. And then there's some magic items specific to the world, the Sword of Right, the Harbinger Horn, the Answer Key. And it talks about milestone advancement. And the artwork is very nice here. And I think it really fits the setting because I don't say it looks like a children's book illustration, but it really could. And then it talks about, how to run the game and some themes like heroism, redemption, or you can even do deconstruction, kind of where you're taking apart the idea of children and fantasy and all that if you like. That's certainly up to you and your group. And then I think is now where it gets into the meat of things is the enemy and who is the enemy. And I think these are interesting. They're crows and jacks, and they're kind of based on, the jacks are kind of based on children's toys like Punch and Judy. And the crows are these strange little creatures with who wear these weird armor. And I think you could easily port those into a standard fantasy setting. I think they'd be interesting. So we get a few more villains here. And then they start getting into encounters. And as with everything Fate, they don't generally give you a lot of maps. It's much more theater of the mind. But this is like an enemy processing station, and you might need to sneak in there or break somebody out of jail. And then it starts to get into, this is a very nice illustration up here where you're approaching some of the cities. And there also is a little bit of mixture of technology. Because these people are coming from the real world, I guess there's a suggestion that some of that technology could be involved here. And they certainly give you several encounters and encounter locations here, just as you'd expect. And of course, you have to talk your way past the guards. You have some werewolves and ogres and, classic fantasy things. This little rabbit guy here. And all that. Now, so you get through all these adventures. And like I said, I don't want to go through every one in detail. But one thing that is interesting here is that they give you 3 possible enemies. So that's up to you. There's the Tyrant and the Nightmare. If you're doing something kind of Ravenloft, I think the Nightmare would work really well. And one called the Invader. So you actually have 3 different big bads you can choose from. You can really tailor this setting to whatever you like. And then they give you some lists of classic fantasy books that you can take a look at for inspiration. And the second one is Psychedemia. And I guess this one's a little unusual. It starts out a lot like Ender's Game, where you're playing children who are sent, it's a more of a science fiction setting. You're playing children who are set to this asteroid mine base where you're trained, but you're trained in psychic skills. So what's interesting is it takes place both in that world, like I said, kind of like the station or the training at Ender's World. And then they give you some NPCs here. And it really plays on that school idea. You have different NPCs who you can encounter who are sort of like the different factions among the students. and talks to you about how to make your characters and how to get your psychic skills. But then it shifts because you go into this like astral realm, and that's really where all the adventure takes place, in this astral realm, and that's what the students are being trained for. Yep, the realm, there it is, and a nice picture there. So this is very different. It really gets into the psychic or psionic powers, and it gives you some aliens who you can encounter there. The choir is interesting, where they sing and you're not quite sure what they're singing. I think that would be great even in a standard fantasy setting to have that kind of bit of mystery in there. And these strange little aliens here. And they do give you an adventure, of course, to go along with it. And like I said, if you're interested in running something similar to Ender's Game, this would be a really good setting for that. And it gives you the adventures here. And talks about, well, what to do afterwards, going forward. Gives you some adventure seeds and gives you a nice character sheet here. Now, the third one I think would take a special group, but it is interesting. It's called Behind the Walls, and it takes place in a prison. And in the 1950s, 1960s, and something has happened outside. There's been, I don't know, a plague or a nuclear attack, or somehow they've been cut off from the rest of the world. So you have to find a way to survive here in the prison. And there's all these different factions. And really the adventure itself is breaking out of the prison. So they also give you some neat rules here for secrets, like if a character has a secret or a secret stunt, and how would that come out? And that's an interesting thought. Even in any fantasy game, what if you have a character who there's something that the other party members don't know much about, or even secrets about the world, and they don't tell you exactly what happened here? So it's up to you to decide that as the game master. And they do give you a map of the prison here, which I think would be helpful, especially in a prison setting. And they go through some possible encounters and how you might get out of the prison. And this is one I don't know that I would ever run. I think you have to have a really good group to do this. And talks about, well, what do you do when you get out? Here they assume 4 people got out. And, what the rest of the world looks like. This really reminded me almost of an AMC series like The Walking Dead. So you might find something you can mine in here. And if you have a really theater of the mind, progressive kind of group, or open-minded maybe is a better word for that, they might want to check this out. Now, here's the one that I think really sells the book, The Masters of Umdar, which is basically Masters of the Universe or He-Man for Fate, but of course with the serial numbers filed off. It absolutely takes its inspiration from something like He-Man or Thundar, and if you really wanted to play any of your favorite 80s cartoons, those barbarian kind of cartoons, Thundar, Black Star, He-Man, this lets you do that. I think you could see the inspirations here. Hey, we have the skull, and you have the warrior woman here. But it is its own setting. It doesn't try to just simply ape Masters of the Universe. It tries to say that I think what's different about here is that the bad guys have won. So you're acting more like a rebellion or a resistance. And you're trying to find these ancient artifacts, which could be either science or magic, or maybe a little bit of both. So it talks about how to build. They call them the Arcanauts. And this is neat because it gives you a table where you roll the fate or fudge dice, and you can be a robot or a beast man or a human or a centaur or things like that. And then if you want to roll, you can pick which, are you a crab type person, a bee type person? And as I said, all those work really clearly in Masters of the Universe. Or you can pick. It certainly you don't have to randomly generate a character. This could be a fun way to randomly generate maybe an NPC here. And are you more amphibian or birds and mammals? And it also uses Fate Accelerated. So you have your approaches. Are you careful or forceful or quick or flashy? And that helps things go really quickly. And let's see, it talks about the kind of stunts you could have and gives you a whole list of pre-made powers, which are what they call stunts. I also think this could be helpful even if you don't want to run a Masters of the Universe type game. If you wanted to run maybe more of a superhero game like the X-Men, there's a lot of powers in here. You know, think about the X-Men. They all basically had one thing. Like you had the energy beams like Cyclops or the metal skin, and let's see, laser punch, mind reader. So you can think about all the different X-Men and how they, X-women too, and all the different things that they had. And if you picked one or two of these, you could easily use this if you want to run Fate for a superhero game. And it gets into, well, how about weapons and what can weapons do for you? This drawing here reminds me a little bit of the Sorceress from He-Man. And of course, it gives you cliffhangers. This is interesting. It gives you cliffhanger rules. And there's some special rules here that give you an idea of, well, if you try it this way, you get a certain advantage. If you try it that way, you get another advantage. So it does try to bring in some new rules into Fate. And of course, it gives you the Star Blades of Sul, you know, the idea of the magic swords. And it gives you a sample adventure, which I think is really good. And I actually ran through it as a solo just to see how it works. And it was interesting. So you could see, oh, you have a raptor Borg here. You know, that melding of technology and magic like He-Man and Thundar. And they give you not the major baddie, but one of their lieutenants. And some suggestions on what goes next. Suggestions for further adventures. Traps, how to design some traps and how to design some artifacts for Fate and for this world. Legendary artifacts. And then it also recommends a book called The Ether Sea if you want to actually take the adventures out into space, or you could just cobble together some rules yourself and do that as well. So that's Masters of Umdar. And that's Fate Worlds Rise Up. So that's a look inside Fate Worlds Rise Up. And it's 208 pages. And I have the links where you can pick it up down below. Now you might say to yourself, well, I don't run Fate, and that's fine. But I think there's still a lot of good ideas in here that you can mine even for other games. So I think it's worth at least taking a look at. And also, if you'd like to take a look at any of our print or PDF products from Sharp Mountain Games, you know, help support the channel, the links are below. Or even if you just want to go and take a look, I'd appreciate that. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.